Hello there guys and welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. This week I'm joined by none other than Steve J. Ray of the Superheroes for Dummies podcast and loads of other things he's involved with, but also Professor Elemental, the prolific Chap-Hopper. Now, if you don't know what Chap-Hop actually is, then this is the perfect podcast for you because that's exactly what gets explained towards the start. It's exactly as it sounds like. It's rap/hip-hop, but very gentlemanly. It's really unlike anything you've probably ever heard before, unless you've heard the basically 3 or 4 artists that seem to be in this one genre. But this chat as well, it was so much fun to do, and after editing it yesterday, I was cracking up while editing it. So this is definitely one of the funniest podcasts that I've released. For just a few points that we talk about, as well as talking about Chap-Hop and the Prof's sort of musical roots and whatnot, we talk about comic books, indie comics, steampunk, horror movies, the worst jobs that the three of us have had, nerd culture, and a few other bits and pieces too. I've included links in the description to Professor Elemental and Steve J. Ray's various websites and how to get a hold of them and things, and I just think this is such a fun chat, I was just really excited to release it. There will be a quick promo for the American Slacker podcast that'll be coming up, and then straight after that it'll get into the full chat. There's not much else to say here, guys. I'll save all the rambling and other information for the end. So once this chat finishes, make sure you stick around right to the end so you can listen to all of the things I've been involved with recently, what's coming up on the show, my other podcast, or almost my other 2 podcasts now, really, and lots of other bits and pieces of information. So after you listen to this, stick around right to the very end, and then give the Prof and Steve J. Ray all the love you can on social media. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening, as always. Here's the American Slacker promo, and then we'll get straight into the chat.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And I am Jesse. So, what is American Slacker, I guess, right?
The highest amount of dick jokes per episode per podcast.
We've been on the air for 57 straight years.
57 straight years of dick jokes.
Thing is constantly soaring over my head.
And you pulling my chain in your weekly weird news.
We're also cannabis friendly. We kind of sneak it in there, almost like you're lacing the brownies at the family reunion.
It's the ride of your motherfucking life.
Fucking 11 when there's only 10 on the dial.
Weapons of mass destruction.
It's a threat to society.
Food assaults.
Yeah, that happens too sometimes. An ostrich took a lit match into a fireworks factory.
I don't even know where to go with that one.
No, that's our third story.
Oh my god. America, what are you doing?
So is someone dumb getting fucked over?
Well, they should have never gave raccoons rights, in my opinion.
Oh my god. You can help us. You can help everyone.
Download our shit now.
We're second America.
Welcome to Genuine Chit-Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton. I am here today with a man who can't come on my show enough, which is Stevie J. Ray, who I keep having on the show. There's more of him to come, but he is actually more of a co-host on this one because the main event is Professor Elemental. Hello there, Prof. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. I've been buzzing around like a little funny bee, and it's nice to actually just sit down for a moment. It's exciting for me just to have a moment to sit down and talk to friends.
Yeah, and it's just talking about really things that you're passionate about and then just sort of whatever the conversation goes with. And I just want to say, the way I first heard of you, funnily enough, was actually I used to work at a place that made cassettes and CDs, called band CDs, also called Whizbit. And my boss at the time there, because I haven't worked there for a few years now, but my boss absolutely loved your music. And I remember when he Paul, and I remember
man of taste.
Yeah, and he got some of Prof's CDs, and he was like, have you guys heard of Professor Elemental? And we were like, I don't think so. He's like, you need to hear Fighting Trousers, you need to hear I think it's A Cup of Brown. And then it was like, what? And we saw it, and he was like, there's a genre called Chap-Hop. And I was like, Chap-Hop? And as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is fucking amazing. So do you want to tell us what Chap-Hop kind of is?
It's a tricky one to describe because if someone described it to me as because I'm a hip hop fan, a massive b-boy for many years, and if someone described Chap-Hop to me and I'd never heard of it, I would potentially think it sounded shit.
I think it's a fine line.
It's hip hop music with a kind of layer of satire over the top, which allows not only a few select rappers to sort of parody the British class system, but also to rap about really unusual and stupid subjects like cups of tea and wearing the correct trousers and pixies and garden fates and that sort of thing. So it's a very silly form of hip hop. And in some ways, it kind of harkens back to the kind of late 80s when hip-hop was fairly experimental and everybody was just picking it up and doing weird stuff with it. So that's where we've taken rap music, and some people have loved it, and to be honest, it hasn't in any way caught on. There's still only 3 people doing it 15 years later.
And there's you, and also you had that sort of the feud in air quotes with it was Mr. B. Was it the gentleman rhymer? Is that it?
That's true. I did pick a fight with the only other person doing the form of music that I'm doing because he lived in the same town as me, and coincidentally started at the same time as me. So I was like, right, I'm not having that. He's obviously copying me. He couldn't have come up with that idea on his own, and of course he had come up with that idea on his own. And then we both apologised for 10 years afterwards because we're British.
And did you two?
It's just what we do.
But we are very, yeah. I mean, the British element of Chap-Hop is quite a big thing. And I want to ask though, did you, Mr. B, and then this potential third person, did you guys kind of all inadvertently create the genre, or did it already exist in some way?
No, we totally did. And the weirdness of him and I starting at the same time in the same small town was very strange. Because Mr. B, before doing his current stuff, was in a band called Collapsed Lung in the 90s that had a sort of, had a couple of hits and did really well. And so he's been in music for years and years, and then just decided to do that as his next thing. And I did The Professor as a little one-off accidental show, and then decided, oh my God, I love this. This is much more fun than being a proper rapper. And there's a guy called Thomas Wilde and a woman called Madam Misfit and a couple of other people who've taken it on as well. But yeah, it was a pure coincidence, and I love that about it, actually.
That's mental. And Steve, how did you first hear of Prof's music?
Well, one of the writers on my site, a dear friend called Scott Hamilton, said to me, much like your boss said to you, Mike, hey, have you ever heard of Professor Elemental? And I said, no. He goes, well, think Doctor Who meets 2000 AD meets steampunk meets comic books. And I said, don't stop talking. You had me on the first line. Let me hear this stuff. He goes, well, I'm actually chatting to him. Can I interview him for the website? I said, yeah, who do I have to kill? And the rest, as they say, is history. We did a 2-part interview, one with Paul Alborough, the man himself, and one with the Prof. Both were completely different and nuts. And then Professor and I have been chatting ever since. He's been a guest on my podcast. I've gone to see him live. And we've become, I hope I'm not overstepping my mark, we've become good mates. And we talk comics and nonsense on a regular basis.
And because of Steve being like the king of comics as well, having like that lovely connection share as well, just kind of like, what's that, Steve, what's going on, what's out there? Well, I tell you might want to try this and this, but don't read that. Like that's that's a lovely thing. That's a bond. Like that is an unbreakable bond between two nerds, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because yes. I heard, as I said, I've heard your music before, was many years ago now, but like I first heard you as a person rather than like a performer on the Superheroes for Dummies podcast, because you guys spoke about Plastic Man, who I'd never heard of, except I realised that I used to be a massive Top Trump collector. I had about 60 or 70 packs of them. I had all the Marvel ones, DC, etc., which is one of the reasons I have this weird peripheral knowledge of certain superheroes that I'm like, I know the name of, and I've never seen anything about them, and I can name one fact because Top Trumps has the little fact files. And I remember seeing Plastic Man on there years ago, and I think I'd forgotten it, and I cracked out the Top Trumps with Megan the other day for a laugh, and Plastic Man was on there, and I'm like, out of 30 cards of the biggest DC characters, how did Plastic Man get in there? And I know your answer, Prof, is going to be because he's the greatest hero ever.
Well, yeah.
I love that. Even not knowing who he was, you immediately thought, oh, he looks shit. Like that. That's why I love him, because immediately anybody who encounters him who doesn't know him goes, oh God, he looks awful. And I think I feel a great kinship with that from all the times I've walked into rap ciphers or other people's gigs, particularly in the times I've been in some kind of cosplay or fancy dress and been that guy where everyone turns around and goes, oh my God, he's not going to get up on stage like that, is he? Oh my God. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. Before I discovered the Prof when I was just doing sort of Brighton hip hop, and there was there's still a lovely Brighton hip hop scene, but in the kind of generation of it that I came up in, it sort of started out quite eclectic and quite silly, and then it got a bit more straightforward and a bit more straight up sort of battle rhymers and things. But in the early days, people were doing some quite odd stuff, and I remember thinking, oh, well, you can rap, you could do anything. And like, I went on stage once dressed as a cowboy and did this song about square dancing, just looking out at this sea of angry b-boys. Was sort of the best and the worst experience I could ever have. It's like, once you've done something that bad and that embarrassing, you can do anything. It's a kind of freedom that comes with letting go of your kind of sense of anything cool or sensible. It's lovely. And I was in a really good hip-hop band that I broke up single-handedly because of an argument because I wanted to wear an Easter bonnet on stage and they wouldn't let me.
Yoko!
I know. It was a lovely bonnet. I'd found it in the toilets, and I was like, "Look, I just found this. Why don't I wear this for the gig?" And they're like, "No, well, I'm not doing it then." And then we split up.
Wow. I mean, you hear about like rock and roll stories of bands splitting up, and you hear like
That's the best one.
Exactly. You hear like you see the biopics of like Rocket Man and Motley Crue and all these ones, and you get the Professor Elemental ones. Like, yeah, broke up the last band because they wouldn't let me wear a bonnet on stage. It's like
that's the kind of hip hop that I live for. That's
rock and roll
to me.
But I would ask, with obviously the genre of Chap-Hop, obviously is quite associated with British culture and things. I wondered how people outside of Britain kind of perceive it, because I'd have a thing that I would assume Americans, probably half of them love it and the other half absolutely hate it. But I'd be interested to know.
I've been very, very lucky with American audiences. They've been really kind, because America, I sort of look how Americans perceive all of England to be. America, we've got grand ideas of our sort of special relationship. As far as I've seen, Americans look at us as this funny little novelty island that serve tea and live in downtown Abbey, and they don't think beyond that, because we're not as important as we think we are. British people are not. Our place on the world stage is not what people think it is, and so they find us a funny little novelty. In turn, I'm a funny little novelty popping along. Don't make stand-up comedy jokes about American flags or gun control. I have learnt that lesson.
Yes,
that's a rough sell.
in Texas. That was a strange moment for me. But other than that, they are the nicest audience. Although they do whoop at fucking everything. Like, it's brilliant when you first do it. Like, oh my God, they love me. Oh no, they just love everything. And literally, you can say anything at all, and they go, whoa, yeah, whoa. And I chested it. I started saying really awful things. I was like, you whoop at everything. I'm like, whoa, whoa, yeah. I'm a massive racist. Whoa, whoa, yeah, whoa. Anything. They would just whoop and cheer out, which can be, when you're used to a British audience, that can be a bit tricky sometimes, because I quite like the dynamic of having to win people over. Like, if I get someone up on stage, I want to make them feel good, but there's a kind of uncomfortable dynamic that you have to play off to get the kind of comedic tension out of it. And that doesn't work in America, because everybody you pick out of the audience is just so happy to be there that there's no comedy to be had. 'Cause they're like, yep, I'll do anything. What do you want me to do? And like, oh, no. You're supposed to feel slightly uncomfortable, and then I make you feel better. The power dynamic's been ruined.
Well, also, I feel like with your genre especially, like, it must be weird because certain hits kind of go viral in a sense. I think Fighting Trousers was one of those, and there's certain kind of beats you have to hit, because I presume that the live element is one thing that really helps you when you play at festivals, because with a genre, it seems like not a huge amount of people would necessarily search for Chap-Hop unless someone else tells them about it. But then if you go to a music festival, you've had a drink or whatever else, and you walk up to a stage, you see someone wearing what you're wearing, a lot of steampunky stuff, like his Steampunk Zookeeper, and then you come out there and it's
I like that.
My God, that's the next album title sorted. Steampunk Zookeeper. Lovely.
So I assume live then, do you get a lot more people you find going to you at festivals to like, oh my God, what's this guy doing? And then
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it's a real test, that as well, because if I'm at a steampunk event, you can get a bit idea. I think particularly early on, when I had a nice little bump and steampunk was sort of on the come up, and I was playing loads of those kind of events for fellow nerds. There was a brief period where I turned into not a very nice person, just a little bit too big for my boots, and thinking, oh, I can smash any stage. I'm amazing. People love me. And then started doing sort of more mainstream festivals where people don't have a clue who you are, and that separates the wheat from the chaff of how actually good are you, because you've got to keep them entertained and they have no clue who you are beyond the novelty. And yeah, that's kind of brings it back down to earth a little bit, which is really good. That's what I wrote. The next album is all about the professor's ego getting like spiraling out of control from doing too many live shows, and then some terrible things happening to break him. Bring him back down to earth. Break him like Batman in the 90s. We're going to break him down.
I will break you.
I will break you. I considered having his back broken, but I thought it might be a bit extreme, so I've broken something else.
I'm sure you could get someone to dress up like a steampunk sort of Bane, couldn't you? That wouldn't be quite that hard. That would be quite cool.
To get steampunk.
I'll do it. I'll put on a masked wrestler's outfit
Mexican
and
wrestling
break
mask.
my back trying to pick you up to break your back.
I mean, you could just come along in a wrestling mask and kick me in the shins, and that'd be me finished. I'm pretty flimsy. I'm
and I am
basically
half Spanish, so I can do the Latin American thing. I will break you, Professor Elemental.
I quite like that idea. This is so far been a very useful chat in terms of providing me with inspiration at a bit of a stark time in the world. I've got zookeepers, I've got you in a wrestling mask. It's coming up nicely.
Well, all my writing staff at Dark Knight News and Fantastic Universes have fallen in love with you because of what we've done on the site, and DC Comics News now have followed suit since your appearance on Superheroes for Dummies. So your American audience is growing one nerd at a time, brother. One nerd at a time.
But it's kind of a gift and a curse being involved in sort of nerd culture at the moment, because it's great because you can pick up many more people than you would normally, and it's more mainstream, but also there's more people doing the kind of podcasts and fan things, you know, and the companies have latched onto that as well. So it's a crowded market, but there's enough love and enough nerds to go around and enough funny things happening, I think.
Here's a question for you. Have you ever thought of doing a comic, a Professor Elemental comic or anything?
Funny you should mention that, Sonny. Yeah, we've done 5. We've done 5 issues so far of the Professor comic.
I was going to say.
And even had like some people that I just absolutely adore to do the covers. There's a weird thing of being a grown-up and being in creative stuff by yourself with no backing, and then going, I wonder if I wrote to so-and-so whether I could get them to do a cover, say. And, you know, sometimes you just get ignored, but there's the odd person who's come back, like Charlie Adlard from the Walking Dead comic. He's done a couple of covers for me for things, and is the nicest man in the world. And there's, I think as a fanboy, you sort of elevate the people that you like in the way that you would have done when you were like a 9-year-old. Go, cool, imagine be working with them. And of course, then you suddenly realise you're a frigging grown-up, and actually you've got a budget for this sort of stuff. You can just simply pay them to work with them in a normal way. And that's, Yes, and also it's introduced. There's a chap called Chris Mole who's written nearly all of the comics, and he is involved in the small press scene. He does some really good comics himself, and has just introduced me to all these amazing small press artists and writers, and reminded me that there is a world beyond superheroes. I'm a big DC fan, but it's nice. It's nice to be reminded that the comic art form can stretch far, far beyond what we're regularly given.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to pick up those comics then. I'm trying to get into more, indie comics and things. Well, I just want to get them, and then what I want is for, the world to stop passively ending. Well, someone on my podcast called it the passive apocalypse. So it's just like, it's like a really slow, boring apocalypse.
It is a slow apocalypse. I'm going to talk about that in my show this afternoon, actually. How boring and slow it is. Like, fucking let's crack on, shall we?
That's a good one.
The problem with the indie comics, like for me anyways, I often go, it's a bit like trying to watch indie films as opposed to watching a blockbuster. You feel very worthy, and I'll often stride into Brighton Library where the only comics they've got are things like Mum's Cancer, a Diary, or 3 Weeks in Sarajevo in the 90s. These sort of black and white comics that are like huge and thick, and I'll get a load of them out and I'll start wading through them and thinking, well, this is very worthwhile. And then out the corner of my eye, there'll be a gaudy little superhero fight going on another kind of trashy comic. I'm like, I'll just read a couple of Superman comics, then I'll get back to this one about Bosnia.
Vault Comics are the ones you guys want to look at. Brilliant little independent company, and they're killing it. Everything they produce, they don't have like 100 titles, they've got like 10, but all of them are brilliant.
Yeah, there's been some really good stuff actually. Ahoy Comics have done some good stuff.
Yes,
in the American
I love Ahoy.
And just the best things that I've read in terms of Britain are just the tiny little kickstarted, really, really small ones. I'll have to, when you put this podcast out, I'll have to send a few like links that you can include with it for places for people to get their small press comics.
Yeah, 100%. And what we can do as well, we can get the comics, and then we can try and get Tony of Indie Comic Spotlight, and we can do a very special episode on that. I know he always listens to these shows, so this is me now saying to him, he has to do it. I'll buy the comics, we'll get you on, and we'll talk about your comic with you, Prof.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be good. Or we'll all buy the same comics and then discuss, like, honestly, discuss a few of the weird and wonderful things that are out there, and we'll try and find some of the weirdest ones. I'm sure if we get in touch with listeners and readers, people will recommend the strange shit for us, because all of that's the nice thing about doing a weird act for a living is you attract other weird people. And so, like, when I've just sort of found my tribe doing this, like doing sci-fi conventions, steampunks, you meet weirdos like Steve and people nearly as weird as him.
Yeah, I like myself. Like, I would not be offended. I would be offended being called weird. It is a cool thing though, isn't it? Because like with our sort of little podcast network we got, especially, like I've met quite a few people through Steve's, Superheroes for Dummies and a lot of the other shows. And it's just like, once you kind of get in with one, it's almost like a domino effect of all the sort of collaborations and people you can just meet. It's mental.
It's lovely. And I just, those little communities that have replaced more traditional sort of local communities, now that we're in this sort of digital age, they bring a great sense of comfort to me, because they're really easy to latch onto. And for all of the terrible, awful things about the internet and social media and stuff, there's something really beautiful about the fact that no matter how introverted you are or how depressed you are or what you're struggling with, you can connect up with people who will give you a bit of support and comfort. I've seen in the steampunk world just the most beautiful things of like a local steampunk group, and somebody drops out or goes quiet for a bit or has mental health problems or has to have an operation and they don't have much friends or family, and people just swarm in there. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you have a subculture, whether it's furries or steam trains or Batman, once you connect up with people, it's a good reminder, isn't it, that you're kind of like, we're all in a little, we're all good people, basically. The world's full of good people, no matter how it seems otherwise.
The tribe phrase is a great one.
Yeah, it's all about tribes, isn't it? I love a tribe. Love a good tribe.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And you mentioned that steampunk, actually, and steampunk's always been something that I've been quite intrigued by. I've never had like sort of the full steampunk garb, but one of my favourite things is specifically like mechanical and gears and whatnot. Nice. I've got loads of pocket watches that I just love, and any excuse. Whenever I go outside, whenever I can go into the world, normally when I'm out drinking or I go to like a festival, anything like that, I wear like a bracelet full of, my arm is full of bracelets, all kinds of different crazy ones and things all the way up. And then I've got necklaces on, and then I've got a pocket watch as well. So I've just got the full sort of jewellery of steampunk, but none of the actual gear. But trying to explain what it is, I feel like I could maybe do it justice, but I think you're in the world more. So if you want to, anyone who's not already aware what steampunk is, do you want to just kind of tell the listeners?
Yeah, it's another one that's quite hard to define. Steampunk, as far as I've seen, is the subculture that everybody who never found another subculture ended up in. It's full of people that just didn't fit into any of the other things. All the sort of happy goths and weird, slightly camp middle-aged rappers, they all end up piled into steampunk. And people like it for sort of different reasons. Some people just love the sort of fancy dress element of it. Other people love the camaraderie. A lot of people just like the heavy daytime drinking that's involved and crazy music. So it does bring quite an eclectic group of people, and because it's it's so nerdy that it goes beyond. I don't know, if you're at a comic convention, say, as I've been to many of them, there's the traditional comic book guy kind of nerd that's often there that might be going, well, that cosplay is not correct because you didn't look like that in the 70s comics or whatever. But in steampunk, because it's very hard to define, there's not very much of that, because it doesn't matter if you just kind of like, I mean, all of these clothes, I get my jackets made nice, but the rest just comes from charity shops. I spent 15 years in dead old man's trousers.
An old man's fighting trousers.
And it doesn't matter, like no one's ever gone, oh, your trousers are a bit shit, Professor, because you can wear whatever you like, or you can not bother to dress up at all. Sometimes my dad will come along to gigs, sometimes my kids will come along to gigs, and both are sort of equally welcome.
Your dad was there when I went,
That's the nicest thing about it. It's incredibly welcoming. Apparently not to do America a disservice, but I have heard that, yeah, America can sometimes be a little bit more cliquey, and that's a very general statement covering an awful lot of people. But I've seen more rifts in America than I have in England. But England's so small and such a tiny little world that generally we tend to gather all in together. I didn't explain it at all then. Basically, what the actual definition is, it's Victorian steampunk, Victorian science fiction shit, that sort of stuff. If you like Victorian stuff and you like science fiction, and vaguely kinky things, that is it.
Basically, Technology evolved using steam and coal and flame rather than oil and electricity and digital nonsense.
Yeah, a lot
Well,
of
it
gears
should
and
have
stuff.
Why are you so much better at this than me, Steve? I've been doing this for years. I still can't do a decent job of describing
That's
it.
basically it.
Yeah, my favorite elements of steampunk is when you can see like you can either get computer cases made or even like full on clocks, and it just has all the gears showing, and yeah, it's like dirty sci-fi, which is one of my favorite things. Is like I love Star Wars, and Millennium Falcon's kind of dirty sci-fi, but District 9 and like the Neil Blomkamp films where it's like not all chrome. I don't like it when it's everything's all shiny and perfect sci-fi. I like it when it's like a dirty junk
Yeah, you
pile.
want to see the wires. Yeah, I get that. Dirty sci-fi is a really good description of it. There's an act that I haven't worked with for ages, but she's a lovely friend called Sarah Anglis, and she had an act called Moondog, and she's a scientist as well as a musician. And so she was really good at robotics. So she would have like dolls hooked up to play the theremin and this weird robot crow and all these kind of like creatures. But all of it, like the wires, you could see the wires pouring out of the back of the doll, and it was just everything was completely exposed. And it somehow that was a proper bit of dirty sci-fi. It's quite satisfying, isn't it? It's a bit more, makes it a bit more real.
The last Comic-Con I was at, robots, you were just saying, and you with Star Wars, Mike, someone built a steam-powered R2-D2, and it was roaming around on the floor.
Wow.
I'll send you pictures later. That thing was awesome. You two would have lost your shit because it was fantastic.
Oh my god,
Brilliant.
That really brings everything
Glow
together.
of the
It's lovely.
coals. Amazing.
I love seeing concept art of steampunk. I've seen like Darth Vader's suit in steampunk where it's got like gears and things in the front and you've got a bit of smoke coming out the back, and you're like, that just looks so cool.
There's a friend of mine in America who does a I don't know if he still does it actually, but it's Steampunk Boba Fett.
Oh, man.
And he managed to get the perfect Steampunk Boba Fett costume together. And just by virtue of having this incredibly cool costume, I think he still had a day job, but he spent all of his life being asked to go to conventions and travel the entire world just through virtue of his love of this particular character and having this amazing costume. And I sort of really, I like that, you know, in terms of that sort of cheesy, you can achieve your dreams. Like if you've got a really weird idea, if you carry it about as far as you possibly can, it's amazing where it can take you in the world.
And Steve, I have interest just to dip into your comic knowledge. Are there any steampunk either versions of Marvel and DC or indie comics? Are there any comics that kind of tackle steampunk apart from potentially the Prof one?
Sadly, no, but you do, like the Prof said, see so many amazing cosplayers at conventions who really... Some of these costumes make movie costumes look crap. I've seen a Hulkbuster and an ABC Warrior at comic conventions that have just made me go, what the actual F am I in Mega City 1 right now? If only. Maybe that's our niche. That's what we should do. We should start writing steampunk versions, Victoriana gone mad. Oh, hang on. There's a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I guess. That's kind of ish. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably
yeah.
And that was a big influence when I first started writing random songs for this, not thinking it was going anywhere. That was a huge influence on me, that comic, of just kind of taking those original stories and twisting them and making fun of them. I think I just finished reading the one that has got the sort of Dr. Moreau stuff in it when I wrote my little animal magic song about sticking their heads on different animals. So yeah, that's a big... But the steampunk and comics, you'd think it would... I mean, there are steampunk comics out there, but they don't really grab me that much. It's weird. So I find the same with horror. I really love horror movies, but I don't ever get scared at horror comics. I still haven't found a horror comic that's genuinely frightened me.
Not since Alan Moore and Jamie Delano, anyway.
It's strange. Some things don't work in different sort of formats.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of horror now, unfortunately, you've got the sort of two types of horror, because I'm a fairly big horror fan as well, but I will say, as much as I love horror films, the majority of horror films are quite shit. That's the problem. The good ones are fucking phenomenal, and some of the indie horror films are some of the best you'll ever see, but the thing is that it's such a fine line, because you get the jump scary horrors, which really is just you need to play really loud music at the right time, and it can work in certain ways if you're going down that route, but to find something that genuinely scares and creeps people out and makes them like afterwards go, oof, Jesus, like I've probably only seen maybe 5 films in my life, and 2 of them are the Blair Witch films, so it's you know what I mean, and that one of them was when I was quite young.
You are as well, because everyone's got different mileage. Just like comedy, different things make us laugh, different things make us scared. There'll be things that I'll watch with friends that will utterly terrify me and they'll be fine with, and vice versa, that they'll be disgusted by and I'll be like, nah, it's no big deal. So So yeah, it's hard. Although I don't, because I watch so many though. Like it's a bit like reading comics and liking hip hop. You just have to work through a lot of shit to find the good stuff, don't you? But I have seen so many good ones recently that are just, exactly as you say, those indie films that are just like, oh my god, that was so worthwhile. There's one I watched the other day called The Night, just about a couple trapped in a hotel. And it worked with very little. It had very little budget. They didn't have much to do, but it was one of those ones where the rules of the world were all kind of like going back in on themselves, and they'd open one door and actually there'd be the corridor where a minute ago there was a wall, all that kind of headfucky kind of stuff. And yeah, I watched it on my own. Scared the crap out of me. I was delighted. I've never been so happy to be terrified.
Check out Hill House Comics, guys. Joe Hill's imprint.
Oh yeah,
for
I'm
DC.
reading that at the moment. I'm reading the
Stephen
Plunge at the minute.
King's
Yeah,
son. He's done some great stuff.
yeah. I'm going to
Really
dig
good
through those
stuff.
because I'm a huge Joe Hill fan. I really like all of his
Basket
books.
full of
Stunning.
hits.
Is it good?
I love that.
Oh,
It's
that's the next thing
brilliant.
I'll buy. I'm going to work my way through those. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for Joe Hill. And yeah, him. There's a writer called Paul Tremblay as well, who is amazing. He's so good.
Yeah, really
And
good.
yeah, every book that he does, I've just eat them up. What's your favourite horror film, you two?
Oh, favourite horror film?
Yeah, if you had to choose, I know we're veering off the subject, but
No, it's. Well, I want to talk about anything. I'm torn because I've probably got a couple. I'd say the original Blair Witch. Nothing scared me like that did.
Really ace.
But I was quite young, but I still think if you watch the whole thing and you're in the right mindset, it can be. Yeah. I think The Woman in Black is actually surprisingly one of the best horror films I've seen.
Stage show's fantastic.
I
as
bet
well.
it is.
I've heard that. Yeah, Megan's seen that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
A good, decent ghost story. There's a lot to be said for it, isn't there? That's really, yeah.
Yeah, I think aside from that, I mean, because there's quite a few sort of mid-range ones that are good. Like The Conjuring is good, The Insidious is all right, except the ending. There's quite a few. Sinister's pretty good. I'll tell you what's a great one? Rubber. The tie that gets possessed. Have you seen that one?
I don't have a lot of time. I find ones that know how
Plastic
stupid
Man's
they
Worst
are annoy
Nightmare.
me. Like, it's no Nazis, or a scary tie. Oh, the cows have come back to life. I can't be doing with that. I want.
Well, Rubber's a comedy one. It's literally it's so dumb. But it's one of those films
No,
that
really?
knows it.
That's the thing. I don't like them knowing it. Like, we watched. There was a 90s film called Castle Freak. And it was a real running joke with me and my friends, and it was so bleak and unpleasant. And we'd occasionally show it to people because it had become a running joke, and we'd forget how horrible it was, and we'd lose new friends to our sort of social group showing them this film. Go, oh no, it's really funny. Oh yeah, that bit happens. Oh, sorry. No, don't go. Oh shit.
Is that what you based I Like Horror on?
Yes,
track
it
I
was
Like
exactly.
Horror?
That's the moments of that sort of film. But they've remade Castle Freak, and we've got together. We're like, well, we haven't got high expectations of this, boys. We walked together, and it was like there's like a single tear of joy coming down my cheek as I say this. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful in that it was even more unpleasant, horribly acted. But no one seemed to know how bad the movie was, and that's such a rare thing these days. Normally, it's all done with a bit of a wink and a smile, and well, we know where this is a bit shit. But it was amazing. It was a perfect balance of genuinely horrifying and truly hilarious at the same time. It's a rare thing to pull off. So yeah, try the Newcastle Freak if you want to lose more friends.
I'll make a mental note of that. I can't think that there's a couple of weirder films that I've seen, but Steve, is there any horror films that jump out at you that you can think of?
I'm old. I'm older than both of you gentlemen. So for me, the Omen movies still stand up incredibly
they were
well,
scary,
particularly the second one. I mean, I do like comedy horror. For me, the Evil Dead movies, Bruce Campbell's Evil Dead movies,
yes.
I will love them till the day I die. And having met him and interviewed him even more so, he just killed. It wasn't an interview. He ended up talking to me and making me cry with laughter. That was the actual real gist of that interview. He just destroyed me.
My brother calls him Juicy Brucey. So he's always called him that. My brother showed me the Evil Dead movies, and he's insane. But the new Evil Dead,
a nut job.
The new Evil Dead film is not funny, but it's I thought it was really good because
it's okay, but he just needed a cameo from Bruce.
That is true.
He needed a little something. It was just another horror film.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see those films. I mean, the show. Did you watch the series?
Yeah, I've seen series 1. Yeah, it's so good. It's mental. Ash vs. the Evil Dead. It's incredible. It's really good.
Oh, Prof.
Is it good?
Seriously,
yeah.
It's it makes the movies look tame.
Lovely. Well, that sounds grand.
The scene in the morgue, that's all I'm going to tell you about. Oh, it's fan. I'll send you them. I've got
Yeah, please do. I'd be delighted.
Is Bruce ramped up? It's just, well, Ash, but it's him ramped up to like full Bruce Campbell, and it's just him, all his badassery rolled up. It's ramped up. It's so good.
Lovely.
Spinal Tap Evil Dead. It's Bruce Campbell turned up to 11.
Beautiful. No, that does sound worthwhile.
It's so
Yeah,
good.
I don't know how it's quite good. And I quite like one of the silver lining to the pandemic, and one of it is it's slowed popular culture down to a stage where I can actually engage, and I feel like it's a video game that I can finally complete. And that I've nearly finished telly, nearly done all the telly now. I was always behind on telly, done it all, read all the books, seen all the comics, brilliant. I'm about 3 weeks away from just being able to just drop dead because I will have done everything. Oh, that's good. I've read everything now. Goodbye.
Don't you dare. You die, I'll track you down and kill you. Stop it.
Oh no, I've finished. I reckon I can't wait. I can't wait to die because it would just be as James Acaster has said, it's nice, but it's too much of a good thing in it dying. It's just like I want to lay down. I want to have a good I just want to rest. So I am in some ways quite looking forward to the end times. Oh God. So tired. So very tired.
Take a couple of years off for tax reasons, like the guy in Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah, I do. Maybe I do need to just vanish for a bit. But I know what would happen if I vanished for a bit. I'd spend the whole time I was vanished go, ooh, I've hidden away, and then I'd burst back on the scene like, hey guys, I'm back, and no one would notice. Like, had you been gone? Yeah. That was a waste.
Oh, we thought you just gone down to the shops.
Yeah, exactly. A bit like when I get really angry. Like if I'm in my most angry, you know, when you get fucking enraged, like you've had an argument that's tipped you over the edge, you know, and you're beyond rational thinking, and you go a bit too far, whatever that means to you, with a big shouty argument, and you smash something or whatever. It's always after that whoever I've been angry at, you know, I'll calm down and I'll say, I'm so sorry about the way I behaved. That's just not like me. And universally I go, oh my God, I didn't notice. Were you gone? Yes, I was terrifyingly enraged, didn't you? Oh.
I just thought you needed a biscuit.
Yeah.
Or Snickers.
Oh, you're a bit tired. Fine.
You're awful when you're hungry, Paul. Have a Snickers.
That is the funniest part. Like, you're representing Chap-Hop in a way, and then it's like you get enraged and people don't even know you're angry because British people are so reserved.
Too much time being like ridiculous and flimsy that like as soon as you start getting angry, like, oh, that's even funnier. Now look, you're trying to be serious.
Like the end of the duel. Brilliant. You're both angry at each other for half the song and then you end up apologising.
Yeah, exactly that.
I love it.
Oh. Well, linking in with that, that's a nice way to loop back. What made you get into music in a sense? Because obviously you were in a band, you say, that you broke up because of the bonding situation, and then you went solo. How long have you been sort of involved in music, and has it always been vaguely rap related?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got any musical talent. So it's all been, you know, rap was my only option. If I had the lead part in Bugsy Malone in high school, and they said, well, you're perfect for this, Paul. We'll just give you need some singing lessons. And the singing teacher took me in for a month, and eventually said, I can't do this anymore. You can't be in the play because you will never be able to sing. What do you mean? So yes, I had no choice and zero musical talent. But I think, you know, hip hop was the perfect way to be sort of slightly rebellious when you live in a small village outside Ipswich. And no one else likes it, and your dad hates it, and it's perfect. And I'm in the 90s, so like it's the big thing. So that's, you know, like load of other aging b-boys. That's how I sort of got into it. And also rap music was really funny when I got into it in the like late 80s, early 90s. It was all Fresh Prince, and there was a guy called Humpty Hump who was actually another rapper called Shock G, and he would pretend to be another member of his group, this guy Humpty Hump, by putting on a big golden fake nose and changing his voice slightly. And they had loads of hits and stuff. They did really well for themselves. And I come out in my funny hat and everyone thinks it's ridiculous. Like, did you not been watching hip hop? This is what they used to do. So
and
yeah,
Roxanne and Roxanne's grandfather and Roxanne's cousin and Roxanne's auntie and Roxanne's
weird
dog
shit going on. I've got one rap record from like the late 80s called Smurf Trek, and it's a concept song of just the Smurfs in Star Trek, and there's no explanation for it. That's just what happens for a bit, and then it stops. So so I got into the weirdness, and then thank God I managed to find Tom Caruana, who produces all of the music pretty much. Him and a guy called Mr. Frisbee, but Tom Caruana's done all the Professor stuff, and he's just the nicest man. He's like a beautiful hobbit who lives in the woodlands and makes me beats, and thanks to him I was able to connect with other like-minded weird rappers who I get to team up with. And again once you get into like 40 and beyond, you don't have to worry about ever thinking you might look cool or what people might think of you, and you can just find people you want to hang out with and make whatever music you like, because nothing really matters anymore. It's great, isn't it?
Magic.
Middle age is brilliant. I love it. Just don't have to give a fuck about anything. It's great.
Not a single flying fuck is given.
I mean, I do have to feed my children and pay the mortgage, but beyond that, I've got not a care in the world.
Just those two simple things.
Just the basics. But again, that's that's the motivation for keeping going. Where a lot of people, particularly during lockdown, understandably, a lot of creative people have been like, oh, I can't be creative at the moment. There's a lot of pressures on doing the same thing over and over again. Whereas I haven't really had a problem with that, because the terror of getting a real job if this doesn't work out keeps me absolutely firing on all cylinders all the time. You don't have to start working. Jesus Christ, imagine it. Horrible.
Yeah, well, I'm already there. It's not fun.
No, exactly. And you do anything you can to get out of it. And if you get out of it, you want to stay out of it. It took years. I spent 10 years in a call centre before this, so you don't want to go back there.
Oh, definitely not.
No.
Worst years of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I worked where I'm at now is a white and home working and stuff, but I get to kind of do my own schedule. So a lot of the time it's doing the hours that I am paid for, but really it's just doing whatever I kind of feel like, but overworking myself when I am working to make it look like I've spent a whole day working.
I think a lot of people are doing that. That's I mean, you're still doing the same amount of work, but just kind of cramming it in to really
the last hour.
into a really. Should you be putting this on a podcast and sharing it
glad
the world under your real
his boss
name?
isn't listening to this. Yeah.
Well, I just send an email every hour or so just to make it look like I'm doing something. Just that's how. I'm not quite that bad.
The entire rest of the working world, everybody I know is doing that at the moment. It's brilliant. What's the worst jobs you've both had? What's your worst? What's the most terrible job you've ever had?
I worked in HMV for 4 or 5 months, and it was great for the day shift. That was one of my first proper jobs. I worked at Clinton's Cards. I did a few odd jobs and things before that, but it was while I was in college and it was over Christmas. And while I was in store, it was great because I could, get to look through DVDs. I'm a massive film buff, and could stack loads of stuff. And you'd have people actually come up to you and say, "Oh, I want a recommendation on films." I'm like, I didn't even know people did this in shops. This
I can help you.
10 years ago now, but still. And it was awesome. But then it would turn to night, and I was doing nights from 9 p.m. till 5:30 in the morning. And they had half the staff that they had from the year before, over the amount of extra temps they hired, but more work. And they said, if the work isn't done by 5:30, you need to stay and do it. And there was times where we'd be working to 10 in the morning, 4.5 hours late. And you'd complain to the bosses and they'd go, well, you're not working smart enough. It's you who's the problem. And all the people who've been there for a couple of years going this is bullshit, because we know there's about 8 less people this year than there were last year, and there's more work to do. So we know that it's not. And I remember there's one guy who kind of started as a temp like I did. And he said, I'm not staying past 6 o'clock. And they said, oh, okay. Next day, he wasn't there. No, and he was just never there again. Because when you're on the temp contract and it's within a certain amount of months, they don't have to give a reason to fire you. So you can stomp your feet all you want. They'll just kick you out and there's nothing you can do. So that was quite shit, where I'd not only doing nights of, starting 9 p.m. You'd come home from work on the bus or walking, depending how early it was, at 7, 8 in the morning. And you'd be coming from work, but people would be going to work. So it'd be like, I haven't finished my day yet, but my day now is your yesterday and your day's my tomorrow. And just thinking of that after however many hours was just horrendous. So that's my one.
That's pretty bad. I was reading about the sort of the things that delivery drivers are having to deal with in terms of 0-hour contracts. And that being and I think that's going to be one of the real problems of COVID, is people are going to end up on more and more delicate sort of working conditions. And I think, yeah, that's my big worry, is that these horrible, nasty corporations, because once you are like that, you can kick up just the tiniest little bit of fuss, and as you say, you can be out on your ear. I've been that person myself. Or you try and rally the rest of the employees. I've done that. I remember doing that in a call centre, going, right, everyone, this is unfair. And everyone goes, yeah, this is awful, isn't it? Yeah. Well, why don't we all go to the boss and tell them so? And they're like, yeah. And then you walk up to the boss and say, we think this is terrible. And you look behind you and you're on your own. I've had that so many times. Like, oh, anyone gonna? Oh, fuck, it's me again. Yeah, I'm fired. Yeah, no, I'll I understand.
I'll just get my coat.
Yeah.
What about you, Steve? Have you worked anywhere horrendous?
What's your worst?
Definitely call center, and it was a time when they started not just dealing with the UK customers, but customers in the US as well. So having to work shifts that covered like East Coast and West Coast.
Ooh,
so
yeah, that's bananas.
like 8 hours. That was, I mean, never again. Call centers are the worst things in the world, because honestly, and no offense against the public, but most of the public are fucking idiots.
It is true. It does make you hate people, doesn't it?
Honestly, it really does. Because most of you think, how do you stay upright? How do you even? Are you allowed to forget about operating a heavy machinery? Are you allowed to turn a tap on or open a door? Because honestly, I don't think you should be.
Yeah.
So that's anything to do with telesales and call centers. That was the worst.
I generally find also it's always the people who are the most thick who are also the most rude. Like if you sort of get like an old person who's like really elderly and they don't really know what they're doing, but they're nice, because a lot of the time they're like, oh, I'm really, really sorry. I know this is a real big hassle. You know, you helped me with this, that, and the other. And you go, no, it's fine. But then you get people who are not to be overgeneralizing, but normally middle-aged people, guys, and they're the ones who are like, I know what I'm doing. This isn't working because of this. And you go, no, it's not because of that. It's this other reason. No, it couldn't possibly be that because, and it's like, do you want me to help you or not? Like, what do you want from me? You're calling me. I didn't call you, because I've been in other jobs as well that have required similar customer-facing things, but not quite as intense as a call center.
When I was in the mobile phone industry, and this is a true story, this twat got his first mobile phone. And he said, listen, I bought this phone, charged it up like it's in the instructions. It worked for like a couple of days and it hasn't worked since. I said, oh, okay. So it's not powering up. Have you got the charge with you? He said, yeah, no, but I charged it when I bought it. Yeah, but have you charged it since? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you've got to keep charging it. It's not like you charge it once and it works forever. He
Made
goes,
of magical dust.
what? I've got to keep using my electricity to charge this thing. Well, yeah. He goes, well, that's ridiculous. And this was a guy in his 30s. This wasn't like a 90-year-old or anything like that. And he just wouldn't have it. He said, right, you didn't tell me that when I bought it. Well, yeah, it's common sense. Well, my home phone doesn't need to keep charging. Well, it is plugged into the wall permanently. So,
bless.
Yeah, mate, idiots.
Yeah, there's some bad.
One born every minute.
Very foolish people out there.
He actually left his phone to charge at our shop twice a week. I said, well, good luck getting your phone calls, mate. That's true story.
I don't disbelieve you. I've worked in car insurance for the last several years, and fortunately I'm a broker, so I don't deal with the public, but I deal with employees a lot of the time who are like, adamant it's not their fault. It's like, yeah, I rear-ended him, but the traffic light changed and he didn't go immediately. It's like, but you still fucking hit him in the rear. What do you want? Like, it's that sort of thing, and you have to try and be quite polite with it with certain things. God. But I find that here's a query for you guys, because obviously you've both got kids and things, is, do you think working a crap job is kind of helpful in the long run for two reasons, in my view? Because first of all, you deal with so many twats, you kind of get grounded a bit, because you're like, oh, no, not everyone who I associate myself with is nice. But also, working a job that crap, it makes you appreciate a job that isn't, and makes you pursue your passions a bit harder. I don't know what you guys kind of think about that.
True. I know creative people who can't do their thing unless they've got a mundane job to sort of balance it out with.
Yeah.
All jobs, a bit like all relationships, even really bad ones, kind of give you something at the end. And it's the same with jobs. Like, there are skills that I learned doing awful sales jobs or teaching special needs. I mean, teaching special needs gave me everything I needed to perform in front of a group of drunks. It was just the skills are exactly the same. Even in terms of like getting people excited or getting them quiet. I remember just being quite fascinated that in teaching, if everyone's being loud, you don't go loud, you go quiet, so they strain to hear you, so they shut the fuck up. And even, regardless of what level you're teaching at, and it's exactly the same on a stage, if they're being really rowdy, you can get quite quiet and like draw their attention back in. And then if you need them to get excited about the next act, you can get really loud and they all follow suit and stuff like that. So there's always skills to be from every shit job. And as you say, even if the only thing you take from it is, well, I'm never doing that again. That was hell on earth. I think it's necessary. You're supposed to have a few crappy jobs along the way. I think it served me well.
Complete learning experience. Absolutely. Everything you learn. The relationship's a great one because I think I'm a decent husband. I think I'm a good dad, but I wouldn't be without those complete nightmare, crazy ass bitches that I went out with before I met my wife. So
exactly.
It's just lifelong learning, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And with me, they were nice, but I look back at how I behaved at various things, and I think, well, at least I'm not doing that anymore. At least I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So yeah, you grow and change as you get older, and then just when you kind of at your best, then no one wants to listen to you anymore. That's as you get old.
Fact.
The joy of getting old, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is one of those weird things, isn't it? Yeah, because with relationships, I mean, all my friends love Megan and all my family and stuff, and it's great. And it's one of the reasons that she's so involved with the podcast, because I have faith in our relationship and it's not going to become some sort of awkward thing in a few years. But like, I've dated crazy people, so much so that when every one of my partners met Megan, they were like, Mike, she's not batshit. What's happening? Why are you breaking the trend? Like, this one's not a nut job. What's happening? And I'm like, I don't try and go for crazy women. Okay, I just have bad judgment. Like, it was. Well,
have you considered they weren't crazy till they started going out with you, Mike? Maybe you need to look deeper into your own heart here.
That could be true.
She seemed fine when I started, but by the end of going out with me, she was absolutely bananas. She was angry all the time. She was crying constantly.
I've got Burtonitis.
After I screamed in her face 4 times for her being a bitch, she suddenly got really off with me. Do you know why? Yeah, Mike, you were a bit of a twat then, weren't you? Oh yeah, that's probably why. Yeah, so yeah, I think
a lot of us nerds, if we have managed to find a decent person, then there's a certain amount of gratitude that you carry around with you that stops you being too awful, isn't there? Just like, well, particularly if you bag somebody who's quite normal as well. Both me and Steve, there's advantages and disadvantages to having a partner who shares your passions, I think. Yeah. If I had like a sort of a steampunk wife who was also a rapper, I'd hate it because they'd get some of the attention that I clearly deserve at all times. Whereas in fact, I've got someone who's really down to earth and cool and like cool in the actual genuine sense of the word as well, which was always like beyond my understanding growing up. And I think it's quite nice to have someone who can just fucking bring you back down to earth and say, take off your hat and stop talking like that for 10 minutes. All right, sorry, yeah, good point.
You need someone to rein you in. Yeah. That's what I find. Because like Megan's nerdy, but when I first started dating her, she was like a massive Harry Potter nerd. She was almost as much into Harry Potter as I am into Star Wars. So from that, I was not quite, but almost. And so when that was the case, I was like, I'm going to show you Star Wars. She said she'd be willing to watch it because she knew how much it meant to me. And now she's like a massive Star Wars nerd because I was like, because you've got that nerddom about Harry Potter, and the Harry Potter franchise is basically stagnated or dying, depending on how you want to perceive the Fantastic Beasts movies. And it's like, so she has no other sort of fandom to latch onto. And I was like, well, because you had the capacity for Harry Potter stuff, I can try and filter it into Star Wars stuff because Harry Potter's fucked at the moment and Star Wars got loads of content.
Yeah, I think if you've got a nerdy mindset, it can fit different things. Definitely.
Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, same dude.
Pretty much, yeah. Both kind of whiny to begin with, but you love them at the end.
And actually, all those things are the same. And I imagine for people who like things like sports, I'd imagine it's much the same as well. There's not really that much difference between knowing everything about Huddersfield as there is knowing everything about Batman, as there is knowing everything about New York hip-hop in the 90s. It's all basically, the same thing.
Yeah, and yet we're the nerds.
Yeah, exactly. Yet somehow we're the nerds instead of looking at his huge collection of Muppet figures.
You buy a new strip that costs you how much money every time this season starts, and I'm a nerd? Good luck with that.
Yeah, I always call people who are sport fanatics nerds. I had a friend of mine at work.
Ultimate nerds.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine at work, he's like, oh, he's such a nerd for Star Wars. I was like, I am, but you know everything, but you're a nerd for football. He's like, no, I'm not. I was like, okay, who won the Premiership in like 94? And he's like, blah, 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 and the score was blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there you bloody go.
Except like, generally, we don't go out and strike up physical fights with people who like slightly different stuff. Exactly. We don't get a group of us together.
We're keyboard warriors.
And go, Alan Moore is better than Grant Morrison.
Well, I almost do.
The style of magic and the way he worships snakes.
Frank Miller.
Into a massive fight with a load of ball guys in leather jackets. It's just,
Grant Morrison.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder who'd win in a fight between Grant Morrison and Alan Moore, like a physical fight. Because Alan Moore's a big guy, but Grant Morrison's, I'd imagine, he's wiry and Scottish, isn't he?
Yeah, but Alan Moore will just turn Grant Morrison into a toad, because I swear to God,
He's
Alan
a
Moore
magician.
actually is a wizard.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He actually is a wizard.
I love
swear to
old
God.
Grant Morrison interviews where he's saying stuff. He's just at some convention saying, "Oh, I decided to wear my fiction suit, so I masturbated into a circle of goat's blood, and then I took some ecstasy, and now I'm here to do this talk." It's like, whoa, that's what I want my comic writers to be like, all of them.
Yep, and that's not far off one of his interviews.
They're
actually.
fucking
That's
brilliant.
close.
It's thoroughly inspiring. He's my absolute favourite comic writer, just for the sheer bonkersness, even stuff that
Insanity.
I don't like. It's always an exciting challenge reading through his work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but I want to ask as well, we're getting sort of towards the hour mark here, so I'll start to wrap up shortly. But I want to ask you as well, Prof, is with like nerd culture and things, did you find, were you into comic books and stuff a lot and then you got into rap at the same time and they slowly merged? Or was it more so kind of one more than the other, and then when you became sort of Professor Elemental, then the nerdy stuff kind of caught up with you? I'm kind of intrigued.
Oh, it's definitely comics first. Because I've got relatives in America, so there was that connection of this exotic place where the comics came from. We'd get these little parcels with the odd sort of Batman comic or an action figure in, and I'd just be sort of stunned and excited. And because the adverts in comics as well, when you live in a little village in Suffolk and you've got these adverts for X-ray specs and Hostess Twinkie cakes and muscle powders and all these other kind of weird and wonderful things, it just
Space monkeys.
opened up this sort of fantastical imaginary culture as to what I thought America would be like. And I suppose hip hop was a little bit like that as well. Like, even to this day, to my shame, I don't listen to a lot of British rap. I do more now because my kids have started doing, but it's the American stuff that I really like, and I think it's because I'm really in love with those aspects of American culture. Just like British culture, there's a lot of things where you go, oh, I'm not sure about that, but in terms of their popular culture, that's the stuff that I totally dig. But yeah, it's so nice to have a thing where you can just put it all in a great big nerdy pile as well. I'll make a comic and some rap albums and find some new friends. I mean, yeah, I considering that, I bought this pith helmet from a shop on a kind of whim, it's amazing how far it's taken me, really.
Yeah, it's weird. I do like with nerdy stuff. I think that a lot of it, especially when you go, because I've been to a few comic conventions and stuff, and I just find the atmosphere is so great there. And it baffled me that the last one I went to, I think it was MCM in London. I'm trying to remember. Obviously, the last year has been a weird blur because of lockdown, and everything before that in my brain is just pre-lockdown, and then slightly before that, I'm like, okay, and
it's all got sort of squashed together, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have to okay, how long ago did I start dating Megan? Okay, that was 2.5 years ago. So there's like, how many years BM before Megan? So how, and trying to work out what the fuck anything is by that sort of, I don't know. But I remember going there and going to Comic Con, and I went to Star Wars Celebration as well, which was one of the greatest moments of my life. And I just couldn't get the smile off my face. Everything around me being Star Wars.
That's so nice.
And I remember going around, even at the Star Wars one, but mainly at the standard Comic Con. I remember you go around sort of the air quotes main bits. And you go, oh, there's a Batman stand. Oh, there's a Superman stand in that DC area. And then you get to about 2/3 through and you go, okay, that's all the comic stuff. And then you go, oh wait, what's the rest of this? And it's like, there's steampunk stands and there's music, there's video game related things, which is just everyone making 8-bit versions of all crazy songs. And you go to another stand, it's like, oh yeah, I'm using rocks, I'm cutting them in half, scooping them out, and I'm creating weird little creatures out of them, and they're here at Comic Con. And it's like all these crazy cool things. I just like how much nerddom, in a sense, kind of embraces all the weird. And I think that's kind of a culmination of your angle, in a sense, Prof.
Yeah, the creativity as well. It is all different, all those people making all that stuff. It's all tapping into the same creative sort of buzz and being able to mix and match it nicely. And it's nice that it wasn't like that, as me and Steve Roll, we went to comic conventions back in the day. I'm sure I used to go to the UK comic convention in London, and it was the first thing I ever did on my own, and it was just a tatty big hall full of men smoking roll-ups and piles of comics everywhere.
It's like a tumble sale.
And sort of people like Stan Lee just wandering around, barely noticed by anybody. Like it was this tiny, weird, not particularly nice, entirely sort of quite misogynistic. There were no women there at all.
Oh yeah, totally.
No women were really invited there either.
Comicsgate, the early years, isn't it?
Yeah, it really was. I remember seeing a woman in a comic shop for the first time and just being like a character in the sense like, what's she doing in here? A lady in a comic shop.
Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, for all of the things in the world that we can bemoan, the rise of nerd culture and how inclusive it's becoming. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff, and there's a lot of nasty stuff that I don't have to deal with because I'm a white male, so it doesn't, I don't notice it so much. But as a whole, there's been some amazing things that have come out of the changing of culture to make it more nerdy.
Here.
Yeah, and the one last thing I'll say on that sort of point, and then we'll wrap up, is there's something I saw which was some sort of documentary, and it was about people who'd been the smaller Star Wars characters. So people who played Greedo, people who played like the guy who played originally Boba Fett in Episode 6 and things.
Jeremy Bullock.
There we go. And so it was quite interesting because there was a documentary, and I can't remember what it's called. I really should know, but I'll put it in the show notes. Try to remember. I think it's called like Elms Tree something or other, and basically, it was interviewing all the characters and all the actors who are small characters in Star Wars, and they were saying how they literally had their entire lives changed. For like the guy who played Greedo, he was literally like from that year from Star Wars coming out, when sort of comic conventions, especially in America, were, I think they were bigger over there. It took a while for them to come over to the UK
first.
And it's like they were saying like there's like a group of like 20 or 30 people in Star Wars, and they were like, literally, because of comic conventions, I don't have to work my job. I managed to afford my mum's cancer therapy because you can just go to these comic cons and all these people are lining up to beg me to sign photos of this character. And I'm like, they got approached by George Lucas or whoever, spent a week or two on set doing makeup, all that sort of jazz, and they were like, they thought, oh, I just did a cool little film, and then it completely changed their life because of how passionate nerds are. And I just think nerds are, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of toxicity around them, unfortunately, which has kind of come to the forefront a lot more recently. But I think the general sort of consensus of nerds is they're willing to pay extra for crazy weird stuff that they're really passionate about. And I just think that's so beautiful, and that just lines up so nicely.
Absolutely. No, you're spot on. And if you've got I've got no record label. I've got a manager who's really a friend of mine who sort of helps me with booking. It's not like I've got a big management company or anything like that, and I'll never have those things. And now I don't want or need them, because if you've got a good crew of listeners, like Stuart Lee says, he needs whatever it is, a thousand good solid fans who come to every show. That's it, you're sorted. And I think there's a lot to be had from that. I think there's, particularly early on, and I still see it with musical friends now, that sort of chasing a dream, chasing a sort of goal that doesn't really exist. And like, if you got all of those things that you wanted, don't necessarily you think you'd be much happier than you would be if you did it however you wanted to do it, for a small audience, going wherever you wanted to go. Well, not now, but generally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think me and Steve with our podcasts is probably the case of, I know Steve's got his hand in many podcasts as well. I feel like it's almost, instead of us both wanting...
My writing as
well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're the many things you do, but like with those things, instead of getting like, Joe Rogan level listeners, we'd all rather have like, instead of, like 100 million people listening, I'd rather have like, say 10,000 people, but they're all really, really into it. I'd rather have like a smaller community.
Yeah, and you can form relationships with a lot of them as well. They're the people who get in touch, and just like me and Steve did, it's how you form friendships as well, which is it's a lovely thing, which brings us sort of full circle.
It does, and that's a perfect way. So let's wrap it up now then. You guys have been very generous with your time. Thank you so much. And thank you to Steve for sort of properly introducing us, and we'll have to do this again later in the year and just focus on like movies or something. And so just before we sort of wrap up, Steve, do you want to give your sort of how people can find you, the multitude? I'll put them in the show notes, but just for audio listeners and stuff.
Absolutely. I love to talk to people, all kinds of nerds. Please hit me up on Twitter at Elsteevo, EL_STEEVO. To read my written work, just type Steve J. Ray or Fantastic Universes into the Google engine of your choice to find my written stuff, news, reviews, and interviews. And listen to the podcasts, this brilliant one with Mike. I've been on twice and I'm appearing again in a couple of weeks. What's going on with the world? Superheroes for Dummies with Paul and Dan. DC Comics News Podcast, I Am the Night, where we review Batman the Animated Series. My son and I and the occasional guest. And yeah, that's me. Talk to me. I'm always listening.
Nice.
Wonderful. And Prof, what about yourself?
I'm spending all my time on Patreon at the moment. That's my favourite place to be, and just turning out lots and lots of material on there. So Professor Elemental Patreon, you can find it, and if not, just ProfessorElemental.com. I'm always up to some kind of mischief, so you can find me easily enough.
Yeah, and I recommend a lot of your YouTube videos, because obviously there's the classics like, Fighting Trousers and A Cup of Brown, but I've been watching some of your newer ones as well, and that visually they're just a lot of fun to watch, and I think they fit in a lot with the lyrics and everything, and they work together very masterfully.
Yeah, it's lovely. I'm trying to, slowly but surely turn myself entirely fictional and become a cartoon character. That's the next aim.
You're on the Disney Channel, mate. That blew my mind.
Oh, just you wait till you hear what's coming next. I can't talk about it yet, but it'll be amazing.
The Phineas and Ferb, I was watching it and I didn't know you were on it. And I thought, whoa, what? Hey, what's going on? That's the Prof. And it was actually you in character and doing the rap. I'm thinking, what the hell?
Cheers.
You didn't even tell me you'd done that, dude. What?
I pop up in some very, very unusual places. Things that I sometimes do and then forget that I've done and go, oh, yes, look, there I am. I'm marvellous.
Did I? Oh, yeah.
Good. Well done, me.
Oh, wonderful. Well, yeah, whenever you've got your next thing coming out and stuff, you can come back on the show, open invitation, and we can just chat about it for 5 minutes and then talk about nonsense for the rest of it. So
I'd be only too delighted. Thanks ever so much for having us.
no problem at all. Well, thank you so much again, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers.
And that's the end of the podcast. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. As I said in the intro, be sure to go check out Professor Elemental's website, as well as the multiple places you can find Steve J. Ray, including Fantastic Universes, DC Comics News, and superdummy.co.uk. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the chat as much as I did having it. It was just so much fun, and I have not laughed that much in the podcast in quite a while, so it was just so much fun to do. Be sure to check those guys out. I just wanted to note as well that Steve J. Ray is part of the Superheroes for Dummies podcast, as well as a few other podcasts as well. But Superheroes for Dummies airs on the feed of Comics in Motion, which is where my Star Wars podcast airs. And if you guys are a fan of them, also check out episode 115, which was only 2 episodes ago, of Genuine Chit-Chat, where I spoke to Paul and Dan, who are the other half of the Superheroes for Dummies podcast. So what I've got coming up, next week I'm going to be releasing part 1 of my chat with Rachel Midori. She is a wine sommelier, a mental health activist, and she's an ex-porn star. So it's a very interesting conversation. She's a really, really great person to speak with. And if you are a Patreon, you'll get the whole chat in one full go. But as usual with Genuine Chit Chat, when a chat is over an hour or so, I usually split it in half. But as I said, I release it on Patreon in one full chunk, so you get a bit of early access there. Details of the Patreon are in the description, and I also have another show as well on there called Afterthoughts. I do it with my girlfriend and self-proclaimed co-host Megan. We basically watch movies or TV series and give our thoughts on them. I try and release 2 episodes a week. They're normally about 15 or so minutes long, but if you go on Patreon right now, as I said, linked in the description, but it's patreon.com/genuinechitchat. I have released 2 episodes on there completely for free, and that is The Witcher Season 1 and also our review of The Phantom Menace, because we are actually doing a full Star Wars rewatch as well. And there's also loads of other stuff on there. There's The Watchmen, Queen's Gambit. We've recorded How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, the 3 Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. We've got loads of other stuff to come. We just like watching movies and series, and we've been popping them all on there. So if you want even more content from myself, and maybe even if you aren't that fussed about Star Wars, but you want to hear my views on movies and whatnot, go over to Patreon. There's also photos of my tortoise, videos of her, and lots of other little behind-the-scenes things too. So check that out if you desire. On top of that, I've got quite a few other things in the pipeline. I've done quite a few guest spots as of recently. I was on the Podcasts We Listen To show, so I've included a link to that in the description. Part 1 is already out as of the time recording this, where I speak about this very show, Genuine Chit Chat, and then the one that's going to be released in a few days' time on Wednesday, the 3rd of March, I talk about my Star Wars show. As I said, my other show is Star Wars Comics in Canon, and it is found on the feed of Comics in Motion. As well as the other guest spots, I was on Frank Burton's Ragbag podcast, episode 76. Myself and Megan also appeared on the 52 Love podcast. It was an episode released in early February where we wrote poems to each other and read them on air. And me and Megan were also on the 20th Century Geeks massive Batman retrospective. There are 5 parts to it, and we discussed Batman 66, the 4 Burton vs. Batman movies, the animated movie Mask of the Phantasm, and the Dark Knight trilogy. So there's loads of stuff that I've been involved with. I'm doing loads of other guest spots in the coming months as well. And the best place to find me is at Genuine Chit-Chat on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. As on Instagram especially, and on Twitter, I try every day, but it doesn't always necessarily work that way, but I post a few times a week, and I post snippets of upcoming episodes of Genuine Chit Chat, photos from the comics I use for Star Wars Comics in Canon, as well as just random other photos and things, as well as all the guest spots I do and whatnot. So make sure you follow me on social media if you so desire. If you don't want to follow me on social media, but you want to be kept up to date with all of those things, you can go on Patreon, because I put most of that stuff on there too. And just for clarity on the Patreon front, once again, is that if you donate as little as £2 a month, or I think it's $3, then you will get access to the complete, full, unsplit episodes of Genuine Chit Chat going forward, as well as the show Afterthoughts as well, and you get a portion of my undying love. So what is better than that? Aside from that, guys, the only real other thing I was going to mention is my Star Wars podcast. I talk about it quite a lot at the end here, so if anyone's not interested in Star Wars, you can skip this. But if you are interested in Star Wars as so much as you've seen all the movies and you haven't seen anything else, the comic podcast is a really good way to get into the sort of wider canon of Star Wars, because I've tried to make the shows in a way that you can listen to them whether or not you've ever read a single Star Wars comic. I go through the narrative, I explain some of the connective tissue, some of the species and planets involved in things, as well as the general narrative and whatnot. I give background information on characters. I've done a book review. When I interviewed Claudia Gray, I put that on both this feed and the Star Wars Comics and Canon feed. And I've also got more things planned with Star Wars creators. They'll both be on this feed and the other feed as well. But if you like Star Wars or want to just get into Star Wars a little bit more, I would recommend just checking out the show, because I've done loads of things like the history of Count Dooku, Darth Maul, how Kylo Ren got his lightsaber, how C-3PO got his red arm. There's loads and loads of things I've tackled on that show, with many more things to come, which is quite exciting. So make sure you check that out on the feed of Comics in Motion, which is also there with Stevie J. Ray's Superheroes for Dummies podcast, and loads of other amazing podcasts as well. I can't get enough of listening to all the other shows on Comics in Motion. It is just fantastic. But that is about it from me, guys. Thank you as always for listening. It means the absolute world to me for you guys listening to the show, and anyone who wants to check out me on Patreon, it means the world to me even more so. I don't expect everyone who's listening to go and support me on Patreon, because, you know, times can be tough, but if you can go and just check it out and maybe give some feedback if you have any sort of suggestions and things, that'd be cool. But as I said, there is already free content on there. There's approximately about 40 minutes of free audio on there that you guys can go check out. So as I say, you don't have to contribute anything. I don't think you even have to make an account. You just go on there on the link, you scroll down past the tiers, there's a little video there me explaining what you can expect, and then you scroll further down than that, and then you'll be able to see a variety of posts that are locked, but you can click basically view all, and among those you'll find my free Witcher afterthoughts as well as our Phantom Menace thoughts as well. But yeah, thank you as always, guys. I love each and every one of you. I hope you're doing well, staying safe, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
Picture this, someone who knows nothing about comics.
Someone who knows comics from movies, TV, and video games.
A complete ultra comics nerd.
You pick the character you want us to talk about.
You send us the questions you want answered.
You make the show.
A podcast by fans,
For fans.
Making new fans.
superheroes,
or dummies.